For 3 years, Clara was the sun, and Marcus was the man basking in her light. Clara was a high-flying marketing executive. She was generous to a fault. She paid for the vacations to Bali, the lease on the luxury loft downtown, and the Italian suits Marcus wore to his networking events that never seemed to result in a job. When Clara was winning, Marcus was the perfect boyfriend, charming, attentive, and always ready to celebrate her success with a bottle of champagne that she paid for. "You're my lucky charm, Clara," he would say, checking his reflection in the designer watch she had bought him for his birthday. But luck, as Clara learned, is a fickle thing. It happened fast: a corporate merger, a dissolved department, and a bad investment advice from a friend that wiped out her savings. Within 3 months, the sun stopped shining. Clara went from corner office to unemployment. The loft had to go. The vacations stopped. The day she moved into a cramped, drafty studio apartment, she sat amidst a sea of cardboard boxes, holding her head in her hands. She looked up at Marcus, expecting a hug, expecting a teammate. "It's just temporary, Marcus," she said, her voice trembling. "We just need to tighten our belts for a year. I can wait tables while I freelance. We can build this back." Marcus looked around the small room with a sneer of disgust. He didn't see a challenge to overcome. He saw a downgrade he hadn't signed up for. "I can't do this, Clara," he said, coldness that froze her blood. "I need stability. I can't be with someone who's drowning. It's bad for my energy." He packed his bags that night. He took the suits. He took the watch. He left Clara sitting on the floor of an empty room with absolutely nothing but the echo of the door slamming shut. She was back to zero. Actually, she felt like she was -0. For 2 weeks, Clara couldn't get out of bed. But then, a knock came at the door. It wasn't Marcus. It was Sam. Sam was a graphic designer she used to work with. He wasn't flashy. He drove a 10-year-old car and wore comfortable flannels. He had heard what happened. He didn't bring champagne. He brought 2 coffees and a bag of groceries. "I heard you were starting over," Sam said, sitting on the floor beside her because she didn't have a sofa yet. "I thought you might need a brainstorming partner. Or just a friend." The climb back up was grueling. Clara didn't go back to corporate life. She started a small boutique consultancy from her kitchen table. She worked 18-hour days. There were months when she couldn't afford heating, so she worked wrapped in blankets. Through every failure, Sam was there. Not to pay her bills, she wouldn't let him, but to remind her who she was. When she cried over a lost client, Sam made dinner. When she landed her first small contract, Sam celebrated with a homemade cake. He loved her when she had nothing to offer but herself. Slowly, the tide turned. Clara's reputation for brilliance spread. 1 client became 5. 5 became 20. 4 years later, Clara stood on the balcony of a sleek, glass-walled event center. It was the launch party for her new global agency. She was wearing a dress that cost more than her old car, holding a glass of sparkling water, looking out at the city lights. She wasn't just back, she was higher than she had ever been. She felt a tap on her shoulder. She turned around and froze. It was Marcus. He looked older, a little worn around the edges, but he turned on that familiar, high-wattage smile. He was holding a bouquet of roses he must have grabbed from a centerpiece. "Clara," he purred, stepping into her personal space. "I saw you on the cover of Business Weekly. I knew you'd make it. I never doubted you for a second." He reached out to touch her arm. "I've missed us. I was foolish. I was scared. But seeing you now, I realize we were a power couple. Maybe we should grab dinner." For old time's sake, Clara looked at him. She looked for the pain, the anger, the heartbreak. She felt nothing. He was just a stranger in a cheap suit. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Marcus, it's good to see you're surviving." "Surviving? I want to be thriving, with you." Marcus pressed, stepping closer, his eyes scanning her expensive jewelry. "I'm ready to come home, Clara. We were a power couple. We can be again." Clara didn't step back. Instead, she took a slow, deliberate step toward him. The polite smile vanished from her face, replaced by a look of razor-sharp clarity. The air around them seemed to drop 10 degrees. Home, Clara repeated, her voice low but cutting through the noise of the party inside. Let's be very clear about something, Marcus. She set her glass down on the railing with a solid clink. You didn't leave because we weren't compatible. You didn't leave because we fell out of love. You left because my bank account hit zero. You looked at me, a woman who had given you everything, and you calculated that I was no longer a profitable asset. You treated my life like a stock that crashed, and you sold your shares the second you got scared. Marcus stammered, his smile faltering. Clara, that's not fair. I was just. It is exactly fair, she interrupted, her voice rising just enough to silence him. You see this dress? You see this party? You see my success? You think this makes me valuable again? But you're wrong. She pointed a manicured finger at his chest, not touching him, but close enough that he flinched. The most valuable version of me wasn't the woman who bought you that watch. It was the woman shivering in a studio apartment, determined to survive. That was the woman who needed a partner. That was the woman who needed loyalty. And that is the woman you left to rot. Clara gestured toward Sam, who was standing a few feet away. Sam hadn't moved to interfere. He simply watched her with quiet, unwavering pride. You see him? Clara asked Marcus. He didn't wait for the IPO. He didn't wait for the magazine covers. He held the flashlight while I walked through hell. He loved me when I had nothing to offer but my broken pieces. She turned her gaze back to Marcus, her eyes hard as diamonds. You don't get to show up for the harvest when you refused to help plant the seeds, Marcus. You want a power couple. You had the chance to be half of one, but you were too weak to handle the struggle. She leaned in close, delivering the final blow. I'm not angry anymore. I'm just disappointed for you. Because you're going to spend the rest of your life looking for someone to carry you. But me, I learned to carry myself. And I found a man strong enough to walk beside me, not behind me. Marcus stood frozen, his mouth slightly open, the bouquet of stolen roses hanging limp in his hand. The realization hit him like a physical weight. He hadn't just lost a rich girlfriend, he had thrown away a queen. Goodbye, Marcus, Clara said, her voice final. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. It's made of very expensive glass. She turned on her heel, her dress swirling around her ankles. She took Sam's hand, and without looking back, she walked back into the warmth of the party, leaving Marcus alone in the cold.